Well, welcome back. This is session number 2 of our study of the book of Daniel. Were you blessed by presentation number 1? Yes. So, is the central theme of Daniel clear? Yes. All the way through. Now, what you need to do is finish reading that chapter in your leisure time after the last class today, and you'll be able to find the central theme in all of the rest of the chapters of the book of Daniel. We are going to begin on page 901 of volume 2 of our study notes. The title of it is A Layered Approach to Daniel and Revelation. This is the latest thing that I have developed. Actually, this has been developed in the last couple of months. So this is fresh bread from the oven. And I trust that it'll be beneficial in helping us understand how to study Daniel and Revelation together. But before we do, let's have a word of prayer. Father in heaven, we come before you, thanking you for your presence in our class. We ask that you will continue to be with us through the ministry of the Holy Spirit. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Before we can even begin to decipher the complex meaning of the books of Daniel and Revelation, we have to understand some basic principles of interpretation. In order to interpret the Bible correctly, we have to understand the principles upon which it is built. So let's go through very briefly 2 or 3 of those very important principles of interpretation. First of all, although it is difficult to get rid of our biases, we must pray that God will remove preconceived notions from our minds as we study the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation. I've had to adjust my views many times. You know, I used to believe that the 24 elders were those who resurrected with Christ, just basically repeating what I had read in the commentaries. But then I decided to study for myself. And, I changed my view. There's nothing wrong with changing your view if you find additional evidence. And so we need to study these books with an open mind. And this requires, of course, prayer. 2 verses come to mind. 1 Thessalonians 5:21 says, "Test all things, hold fast to that what is good." So we have to look at all scenarios and then make our decision. John 7:17 tells us that we have to come with a sincere heart. And if we do, the Lord is going to show us whether it's right or not. It says there, if anyone wills to do his will, notice, if everyone wills to do God's will, he shall know concerning the doctrine whether it is from God or whether I speak in my own authority. So we have to come with an open mind and an open heart. Now, another principle is that Daniel and Revelation are written in coded language. And in order to understand them, we have to decipher the symbols of these books. Sometimes, as I mentioned before, we find the interpretation of the symbols in the immediate context. Sometimes the explanation is not in the immediate context. And so we have to look in other places of the Bible where that symbol is used. Now, after we interpret every single symbol in a passage, that's not enough, because you're going to have the meaning of many independent symbols. Then you have to take the symbols and see how they fit together. It's kind of like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. Each symbol is a piece of the puzzle. When you take all of the pieces of the puzzle and you put them together, then you understand what God wanted to get across through the symbols. The next principle on page 902. The prophecies of Daniel 2:7, Revelation 12 and 13 are parallel prophecies. There are many verbal and conceptual links between these chapters. For example, all of them contain the number 10. And in all of them, the last kingdom is different than the previous ones. Furthermore, Daniel 7 Revelation 12 and Revelation 13 contain beasts, and the beasts have 10 horns. And the beasts with 10 horns persecute God's people for the same time period. That shows that they're connected. Daniel 7 expands on Daniel 2, and Revelation 12 and 13 expand on Daniel 2 and Daniel 7. So let me give you one example of the importance of this principle. Notice the passage of Revelation chapter 12, verses 15 through 17. And I'm not going to read the passage, I'm just going to give you the highlights. In Revelation 12, 15 to 17, you have, first of all, a dragon with 10 horns that persecutes a woman for time, times, and half a time. That's Revelation 12, 14, and 15. So you have a 10-horned dragon beast that persecutes the woman time, times, and dividing of time. Then the second point is, as she faces persecution by the dragon during that period, the earth helps the woman. So you have dragon persecuting, then you have the woman helping. The earth helps the woman by swallowing up the persecuting waters that the serpent spewed out of his mouth. And what do the waters represent? Multitudes, nations, tongues, and peoples. Those are the ones that Satan used during the period of the 1260 years to persecute God's people. So you have a 10-horned dragon beast who persecutes the woman, time, times, dividing of time. Then the earth comes to the rescue. The earth stops the persecution because the earth swallows up the waters of persecution. Does this make the dragon happy? The 10-horned dragon, does it make him happy? Oh, no. Now comes the dragon again. By the way, 2 stages of persecution. A past stage and a future stage. Are you with me or not? The third point is that the dragon was enraged then against the woman. Why? Because the earth helped her. He's enraged against the woman because the earth helped the woman. So you have dragon persecuting, earth helping, dragon furious again. Now notice the next chapter, Revelation 13. Once again, you have a dragon beast with 10 horns. It tries to kill a man-child. Okay? So this is a hateful dragon. And then notice this, that this dragon beast that has 10 horns, that wants to kill the child, then delegates his authority to the beast that comes from the earth. The beast that comes from the sea, rather. Are you with me or not? And then we're going to notice that the beast from the sea delegates its authority to the beast from the earth. But let's go back here. So dragon with 10 horns attempts to kill the man-child and then delegates his authority to a 10-horned beast, once again, that rose from the sea. And the sea beast then delegates its authority to a beast that rose from the earth. We see here an unbroken chain of authority between the Roman dragon, the papal beast, and the beast from the earth. Do you see the links or not? Now, each hands off the baton to the next power. So you have this dragon beast that persecutes God's people for how long? According to Revelation chapter 13. For 42 months. Is that the same as time, times, the dividing of time? Yes. In the previous chapter? Yes, absolutely. So you have a dragon beast, 10 horns, persecutes for 42 months, time, times, and dividing of time. But then something comes to the rescue. What comes to the rescue? The earth. But notice that in Revelation 13, it speaks that from the earth rises a beast that has 2 horns of a lamb. So what am I saying? In Revelation 12, the earth that helps the woman is a territory. Are you with me? It's a territory. It's not a beast that helps. It's a territory that helps the woman. But then I want you to notice something very interesting. The dragon beast persecutes 42 months. Then a beast rises from the earth. Which earth? The one that helped the woman in the previous chapter. Are you with me or not? And this beast that rises from the earth, at first, what does it do? It has two principles: civil and religious liberty, two horns like a lamb. But it ends up speaking like what? So let me ask you, does the dragon have two stages of persecution? Yes. During the 42 months? The earth, a nation rises that guarantees civil and religious liberty. And then does that make the dragon angry? It makes the dragon angry, and there's persecution again. So once again, you have the sequence. Dragon persecutes. And then you have the earth in Revelation 12, a beast that rises from the earth. Now it's a nation that rises in that territory. And then the dragon is enraged with God's people. Do you see the connection between Revelation 12 and Revelation 13? Now, what is our task in this study? Today we're going to compare the prophetic chains of Daniel 2, Daniel 7, Revelation 12, and Revelation 13. In our study, we will find that all of these prophecies complement one another, and each expands upon the previous one. The Adventist interpretation of prophecy has a fundamental principle, commonly called the historicist or the historical method. This principle teaches that the great chain prophecies of Daniel 2, Daniel 7, Daniel 8, Daniel 11, Revelation 12, Revelation 13, and Revelation 17, as well as the seven churches, the seven seals, and the seven trumpets, begin to fulfill in the days when the prophet wrote. And then they continue fulfilling in an unbroken sequence or chain of events, culminating with the setting up of Christ's everlasting kingdom. Are you understanding the historicist principle? It's in all of the series of Daniel and Revelation. We're going to find in our study that Daniel 7 expands Daniel 2. And Daniel 2 and 7 are expanded further in Revelation 12 and 13. Then Revelation 17 provides the final expansion of all of the previous chapters. Notice what Ellen White wrote about the connection between Daniel and Revelation. The things revealed to Daniel were afterward complemented by the revelation made to John on the Isle of Patmos. These two books should be carefully studied. It was the Lion of the tribe of Judah who unsealed the book. This is talking about the unsealing of Daniel 8 through 12 in Revelation chapter 10, and gave to John the revelation of what should be in these last days. What particularly does John point to? What's going to happen when? In these last days. Then it continues saying, this statement, the book of Daniel is unsealed in the revelation to John and carries us forward to where? To the last scenes of this earth's history. So once again, we have to study Daniel, but Revelation complements Daniel. It expands upon Daniel. It adds details that are not found in the book of Daniel. In the next statement, Acts of the Apostles, page 467, we find this quotation. In the Revelation, all the books of the Bible meet an end. Here is the complement of the book of Daniel. One is a prophecy, the other a revelation. The book that was sealed is not the revelation, but that portion of the prophecy of Daniel relating to the last days. So what these statements are saying is that Revelation expands upon the book of Daniel. The book of Daniel is not the final story. Daniel, a portion of it, says that portion of the prophecy of Daniel, Daniel 8 through 12, basically are sealed until the time of the end. But at the time of the end, this portion of Daniel is unsealed in the book of Revelation, Revelation chapter 10 specifically, and then you have a much expanded view of what we find in the book of Daniel. Is this clear so far? Okay, now let's notice the prophecy of Daniel 2. The prophecy of Daniel 2 contains the outline upon which the prophecies of Daniel 7, Revelation 12 and 13 build. Let's briefly review the order of events in Daniel chapter 2, which we hear in every evangelistic series. You have a head of gold. Which kingdom? Babylon, 605 to 539 BC. Chest and arms of silver, Medes and Persians, 539 to 331 BC. Then you have a belly and thighs of bronze, Greece, 331 BC to 168 BC. The legs of iron, the Roman Empire, 168 BC to 476 AD. The feet and 10 toes of iron represent divided Rome, 476 to 538, the barbarian invasions into the Roman Empire. And then something very interesting. You say, well, you put there, Pastor Bohr, feet and 10 toes of iron. Oh, but then something is added, something strange is added to the iron. Is the clay added to the iron? Of course, because the iron pre-existed the clay. Did the legs have iron? Do the feet have iron? Of course. So, do the feet continue the civil power of the legs? Of course. And then what is added afterwards? Clay is added to the iron. The sequence is important. It'll be clearer when we come to Daniel chapter 7. So the clay is added to the feet and the toes and is mingled with the iron. So far, so good? Now, it is important to remember that Daniel 2 gives us only a basic outline of events that would occur between Babylon in 605 to 539 and the setting up of Christ's everlasting kingdom in the end time. For example, Daniel 2 explains that the feet and toes of iron mingled with clay will be the last kingdom before the second coming. Do you agree with that? That the mingling of the iron and the clay and the feet is the last kingdom before the second coming of Christ? That's what Daniel 2 says. But there's more to the story. What Daniel 2 does not tell us is that there are going to be two separate periods of the union of iron and clay, with an interlude in between. I don't know if you're following me or not. I used to wonder, well, after the Roman Empire was divided into 10 kingdoms, you have the United States of America. It's not there in Daniel 2. And there's going to be a union of a church and state in the United States of America. That's not in Daniel 2. And there's no mixture of iron and clay now. Are you following me or not? So you say, wait a minute. Are there no kingdoms after Rome was divided into 10 kingdoms? We'll come back to this. What Daniel 2 doesn't tell us, remember it's a basic outline. What Daniel 2 doesn't tell us is that the iron and the clay are going to be mixed on two different periods with an interlude in between. And when we get to Revelation 13, we're going to find that the interlude is the period when the beast has a deadly wound. Before that, there was a mingling of church and state. And after an interlude, during which the papacy has a deadly wound, Once again, church and state will be joined together. Are you with me or not? Very, very important. Now, what does Daniel 2 not give us? The basic outline. This is the bottom of page 904. Daniel 2 provides very few details of the first three kingdoms, doesn't it? Head of gold, breast and arms of silver, belly of bronze. That's it. Daniel 2 does not mention, this is important, we're going to deal with it when we get to Daniel 7. Daniel 2 does not mention that the fourth kingdom would have three successive stages. It's just legs of iron. That's all it says. But it doesn't tell you that the legs of iron are going to have three periods of existence. Next, Daniel 2 does not mention that during the third stage of Rome, a power would rise that speaks blasphemies against God, persecutes the saints of God, and thinks that it can change the law. That's not in Daniel 2. Daniel 2 does not mention that the period of the feet would have two stages, with an interval where the union is separated for a period. Top of page 905, Daniel 2 does not mention how long the first stage of the feet and toes would last. And finally, Daniel 2 does not mention that there will be an investigative judgment before Christ sets up his everlasting kingdom. So let me ask you, are there gaps in Daniel 2? Tremendous gaps. Daniel 2 does not tell us the entire story. It gives us the basic outline. So what do we need then? We need an expansion, right? Yeah? We need an expansion. Where is that expansion? In Daniel 7. So let's notice. Daniel 7 describes the identical sequence of kingdoms that would rule from Babylon till the end time. However, Daniel 7 adds many details that are not in Daniel 2. Daniel 7 describes the first three kingdoms. The first is a lion. That's equivalent to the what? To the head of gold. Does it give us additional details? Of course it does. It tells us that the lion has eagle's wings. That after a time, its wings are plucked. It stands on its own two legs like a man and is given the heart of a man. I would say that that's an expansion. Then you have a bear. Equivalent to what in the image? The chest and arms of silver, right? Does it give us additional details? Yes. It tells us that the bear is higher on one side than on the other. That means that there's a dual kingdom, but one of the kingdoms would be what? One of the kingdoms would be more prominent than the other. And then, does Daniel 2 tell us that? No. Then you have a leopard, equivalent to what in the image? Equivalent to the belly of bronze, right? Does Daniel chapter 7 add details? Yes. It's a leopard, which is a speedy animal, but is even more speedy because it has four wings of a bird. And it has four what? Four heads. Now, here's an important point. If you had only Daniel 7, you would think that the leopard had the four heads from the time it started to rule. Daniel 7 gives you simply the total career of the leopard beast of Greece. Daniel 2. But now notice Daniel when we get to chapter 8, we're going to find something very interesting. And that is that the leopard beast that had four heads did not have the four heads when it began to rule. The heads grew later. You say, how do we know that? Because when you go to Daniel chapter 10, or chapter 8 rather, you find that it speaks about a ram. The ram is going to expand upon the second kingdom. The ram has two horns. One horn is higher than the other. The bear is what? Higher on one side than on the other. Daniel 8 says that the ram has two horns. One is higher than the other, and the highest one came up last. And that is historically true. Even though the kingdom began with Medes and Persians, very soon the Medes disappeared, and all the rest of the rulers were Persians. Are you with me? Now, so the third kingdom, when it says that the leopard has four heads, does Daniel 8 expand upon that? Of course it does. Because when you go to Daniel 8, it says that the ram had, or the he-goat rather, had a notable horn on its head. Who does that notable horn represent? Alexander. And the horn is broken and four horns come out, which are equivalent to the four heads. But in Daniel 7, it appears that the leopard has the four heads from the beginning. I don't know if you're following me. But you have to go to Daniel 8 to understand that there was first a notable horn, and then you have the four horns that come out, which are equivalent to the four heads. The same is true in Revelation. You have this dragon beast that has 10 horns. It doesn't have the 10 horns from the time it begins to rule. You have to go to several different passages to know that the 10 horns came out afterwards. Now let's continue here. We're at the top of page, let's go to the bottom of page 905 again. When it comes to the third kingdom, the leopard has four wings of a bird, four heads. And that's expanded, as I mentioned, in Daniel chapter 8. Now, Daniel 7 is going to describe the fourth kingdom. What was represented by the fourth kingdom in Daniel chapter 7? In Daniel chapter 2, rather. Legs of iron. That's it. Right? But now I want you to notice that Daniel 7 expands that the legs of iron are going to have three stages. You say, how's that? Well, let's notice Daniel 7, verse 23 and 24. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom on earth. Equivalent to what in the image? The legs of iron, right? Fourth kingdom on the earth, which shall be different from all other kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, trample it, and break it in pieces. And now notice, the 10 horns are 10 kings who shall arise from this kingdom. So let me ask you, does the dragon beast have the 10 horns when it begins to rule? No. Because it says that the 10 horns would arise from the kingdom. The kingdom has to exist before the horns arise. But that's not the whole story. It continues saying, the 10 horns are 10 kings who shall arise from this kingdom, and another shall arise after them. How many stages to Rome? Here, 3. The dragon beast by itself. The dragon beast sprouts 10 horns. And then among the 10 horns comes forth a little horn. The Roman Empire is going to have how many periods? It's going to have 3 periods, according to these verses. So let's notice the stages. Let's review the stages in the middle here of page 906. Daniel 7 expands the prophecy of Daniel 2, describing a dragon beast that has iron teeth. By the way, if the dragon beast has iron teeth, it must be the same power that of the iron legs. Gives us a hint, see? It tramples and tears and shreds to pieces. It has 3 stages. Daniel 2 did not mention that Rome has 3 stages. However, the prophecy of Daniel 7, this is an important detail. The prophecy of Daniel 7 does not tell us about a woman who was going to have a man-child, and that the dragon would try to kill the man-child. That's not in Daniel chapter 2, and it's not in Daniel 7. But let me ask you this. Was Rome the ruling power when Jesus was born? And did Rome attempt to kill the child? Yes. Is that in Daniel 7? No, but it will be in Revelation 12. I don't know if you're following the principle here. Are you following the principle? Yes. Now, let's notice then, it says nothing about a woman who is about to bear a man-child, that the dragon would attempt to kill the child, and that he would ascend to God into his throne, that the child would survive. Another point that is expanded in Daniel 7 as compared to Daniel chapter 2 is that the dragon beast sprouts 10 horns. In other words, Rome was going to be divided into 10 kingdoms. Up to this point, all of the kingdoms have been secular political kingdoms. Correct? Let me ask you. Gold, silver, and bronze. What do they have in common? They're all metals. And iron, all metals, right? Is there something strange in the image of Daniel chapter 2 that doesn't seem to fit? Clay. Are you with me or not? So are the feet different than all the other kingdoms? Yes, because they're a mixture or a blending. There's something unusual. It's a different kind, different type of kingdom. Up to this point, all of the kingdoms have been political kingdoms. But now in Daniel 7, this little horn is a political kingdom that messes with religion. How do we know this? Because it tells us that this power thinks it can change God's law. It speaks blasphemies against the Most High. In other words, it's a different kingdom that intermingles its political power with religious activities. And this takes us to stage number 3, the little horn that comes forth among the 10, and the 10 came forth from the 4th kingdom, from Rome. What does stage 3 add for us? A nasty little horn rises out of the head of the dragon among the 10 horns, launches an attack on true religion. It speaks blasphemies against God, persecutes the saints, thinks it can change God's law, and it rules for how long? Time, times, and the dividing of time. So let me ask you, does Daniel chapter 7 greatly expand Daniel 2? It greatly expands Daniel chapter 2. It adds details. But the full story has not yet been told. What questions remain after Daniel 2 and Daniel 7? Number 1, Daniel 7 does not explain why the little horn hated the saints of the Most High. Number 2, Daniel 7 tells us that the little horn thought to change the law. But it does not say that it sought to abolish the law, but to change the law. So the question remains, change it in what sense? Would that be a question we would be left with? Notice it doesn't say that the little horn thought it could abolish the law. No. It thought it could change the law. So the question is, change the law how? Daniel chapter 2 or 7 don't tell you. Furthermore, neither Daniel 2 nor Daniel 7 explain that the little horn received a deadly wound. Correct? Do those chapters say that the little horn received a deadly wound? No, it says it ruled, time, times, the dividing of time, and after that the judgment. That's it. So neither Daniel 2 nor 7 explain that the little horn received a deadly wound at the conclusion of the times and dividing of time, and that the deadly wound will heal. Neither do Daniel 2 and Daniel 7 explain who will heal the wound and how. So are there lots of things that remain to be explained? Yes? Neither Daniel 2 nor Daniel 7 explain that when the wound heals, the little horn will exercise ruthless and global dominion as it did during times, and dividing of time. What would we do if we had only Daniel 2? We would have a very broad outline. Does Daniel 7 help us understand even better? Yes, but are there still questions that remain after Daniel 2 and Daniel 7? Absolutely. So now we have to go to Revelation 12. Revelation 12 follows the same historical flow of Daniel 7, but it uses different symbols. Revelation 12 explains and expands, this is important, the prophecy of Genesis 3:15 and some details of Daniel 7. So Revelation chapter 12 is going to expand on Genesis 3:15, but it is going to also expand upon Daniel chapter 7. As in Daniel 7, chapter 12 describes the fourth beast, the dragon with 10 horns. That's in Revelation 12, verse 3. And it also describes the persecution of the saints for times, and the dividing of time. So do we know that Revelation 12 is an expansion on Daniel 7? Yes. Number one, because there's a beast that has 7 heads and 10 horns. And furthermore, the expression times, and the dividing of time connects Daniel 7 with Revelation 12. So we know that Revelation 12 is related to Daniel chapter 7. Now let's go to Genesis 3, verse 15. And there's 5 elements actually that I want us to notice here. The context is that Adam and Eve have just sinned. They know that they're going to die. It's a terrible thought in their minds. And when they're suffering desperation, God comes down to the garden and he speaks to the serpent. And Adam and Eve are there listening. And God says to the serpent the words that we're going to find here. I will put enmity, point number 1, enmity, between you, the serpent, and the woman, third element, and between your seed, the seed of the serpent, and her seed, the seed of the woman. He, the woman's seed, shall bruise your head, the serpent's head, and you shall bruise the serpent's heel. So there's 5 elements. Enmity, a serpent, who is also identified as a dragon, the serpent's seed, the woman, and the woman's seed. Now, how does the enmity run? The first enmity is against the seed of the woman. That's where the real enmity is, between the serpent and the seed of the woman. Because the seed of the woman is going to crush his head. So it would be a priority to get rid of the seed of the woman first. But when the seed of the woman escapes the grasp of the dragon beast, then he goes after the woman who brought the seed into the world. So first, the dragon or the serpent against the seed, the woman's seed. Then the dragon against the woman that bore the seed. And then third, we find that he goes against the remnant of the woman's seed. It's not the remnant of a woman. It's the remnant of the woman's seed. Who is the woman's seed? The woman's seed is Jesus. Doesn't Revelation 12 tell us that the woman's seed is Jesus? Of course it does. So who is the remnant of her seed? It is the remnant of Jesus. I don't know if you're following me or not. It's not the remnant of the woman that the serpent goes after. It's the remnant of the woman's seed, and the seed is Christ. He goes after the followers of Jesus, in other words. So the serpent's deadly enemy is the woman's seed, because the prophecy foretold that he would crush the serpent's head. After the woman's seed survives, then he goes after the woman. And finally, he goes after the remnant of the woman's seed. Now, we're on page 909. Revelation 12, see, we dealt with Genesis 3:15. Where did this war begin? John wants us to understand, inspired by the Spirit, that this warfare did not begin during the Roman Empire. This warfare began in the Garden of Eden. That's why he provides Genesis 3 verse 15 as the backdrop. He wants to show the origin of the dragon who wants to kill the seed. Are you with me or not? Revelation 12 not only fulfills and expands the prophecy of Genesis 3:15, it also adds details that are not in Daniel 2 and Daniel 7. Chapter 12 contains the same dragon with 10 horns as Daniel 7. It also refers to time, times, and the dividing of time. And it also says that the little horn persecuted the faithful. Is there a link between Daniel 7 and Revelation 12? There are several links between them. But there's much more in Revelation 12. Revelation 12 describes 6 consecutive stages, as well as the 5 elements of Genesis chapter 3 and verse 15. Stage 1. Stage 1 occurs before Christ is born, during the period of the lion, the bear, and the leopard. That's Old Testament history. That's where Revelation chapter 12 begins, in the Old Testament period before the coming of Christ. You say, how do we know that? Well, let's read Revelation 12 verse 1. Now a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman. What does a woman represent? The church. Is it the same as the saints of the Most High in Daniel 7? Same? Yes. Now a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. A woman represents God's faithful church. The 12 stars on her crown represent the 12 tribes of Israel, here in chapter, the 12 tribes of Israel, which come from the 12 sons of Jacob. Ellen White writes in Acts of the Apostles, page 19, as in the Old Testament the 12 patriarchs stood as representatives of Israel, so the 12 apostles stand as representatives of the gospel church. So let me ask you, in Revelation 12, verse 1, are we in the Old Testament or the New Testament? We're in the Old Testament. It's the Old Testament church. The period of the lion, the bear, and the leopard. You say, how do we know that? Well, let me ask you a dumb question. Who's first, the woman or the child? Did the woman exist before the child? Did she exist for a significant period before the child? So where does Revelation 12 begin? In the Old Testament. During the period of the lion, the bear, and the leopard. Even though it doesn't mention the beast, you know it's the same period. I hope you're following me. So the element number 1, is there a woman? Yes. There's a woman, just like Genesis 3 verse 15. Now, does a woman have a seed in her womb? Yes. Oh, is that in Genesis 3:15? Yes. A seed? Yes. Let's read Revelation chapter 12 and verse 2. Then being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. So this is the Old Testament. Does Jesus come from the Old Testament church? Yes. Is he of the lineage of Abraham and David? Yes, he has a holy line. You can read it in Matthew chapter 1, for example. So when John saw the woman in verse 2, the child was not yet born. This means that the woman already existed long before the child was born. The context indicates that the man-child is whom? Jesus. because we see in verse 5 that he ascended to God and to his throne. So we have a woman. The woman has a seed in her womb. Now we're going to find the dragon or the serpent, because the dragon is called the ancient serpent. Notice Revelation chapter 12 and verse 3. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great fiery red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Did the beast of Daniel chapter 7 have 7 heads and 10 horns? Hello, there's a link here. By the way, what is that red dragon also called in verse 9? The ancient serpent. Why does he call it the ancient serpent? It's referring back to where? Back to Genesis chapter 3 and verse 15. And so you have a serpent, a woman. The woman has a seed in her womb. Do you have enmity? Oh, the other element. Notice Revelation 12 verse 4. Speaking about the dragon, his tail drew a third of the stars and threw them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth to devour her child as soon as it was born. What is the primary enmity? Is it Satan against the church? Is it Satan against the final remnant of the woman's seed? No, his primary enmity, the first enmity, is with the child. Because the prophecy says the child is going to crush your head. It says, I got to nip this in the bud. Okay, you say we have all the elements here. We have a woman. We have a woman's seed. We have a serpent. We have enmity. What about the serpent's seed? Does the dragon have seed? Genesis chapter 3:15, does it say your seed? Does it speak about a serpent's seed too? It does. So who was the serpent's seed that tried to slay the male child? Revelation 12 verse 5 says, she bore a male child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. Who attempted to kill Jesus Christ? It was Satan. He showed up in person with a pitchfork in his hand, his tail coming out the back. No! Satan, before the end of the millennium, always acts invisibly through visible agents. In John 8, verse 44, Jesus said to the Jews who were listening, you're of your father the devil. You're the devil's seed. In fact, in 1 John, it says, not as Cain, who was of the wicked one. It was Satan who influenced his seed, Cain, to kill Christ. Are you with me or not? And so, notice what we find in Matthew 2, verse 16. Here you have the dragon seed. Then Herod, when he saw that he was deceived by the wise men, was exceedingly angry. And he sent forth and put to death all the male children who were in Bethlehem and in all its districts from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had determined from the wise men. Are all the elements of Genesis 3:15 in Revelation 12? Yes. Do we have links also with Daniel 7? Yes, we do. The time period, time times the dividing of time. A dragon beast that have 7 heads and 10 horns, and persecution of God's people. There's a connection between Daniel 7, Genesis 3:15, and Revelation chapter 12. But the child escaped the grasp of the dragon, because it says in Revelation 12, verse 5, she bore a male child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and to his throne. And then, as we notice, this is why Daniel 7 is important, because it tells us that the 10 horns come up after the empire has ruled for a while. Remember that? So when Revelation chapter 12 says that there's a dragon that has 10 horns that wants to kill the male child, it is giving the total career of this dragon beast. And Daniel 7 says that this career has 3 stages. Now, so the second stage that you have here or the third stage, is that the empire is divided into 10 kingdoms. Stage number 4. Because the seed of the woman escaped the grasp of the serpent or the dragon, now who is the dragon going to go after? The woman. Are you seeing the sequence here? He's going to go after the woman. You say, well, how do we know that? Let's go to Revelation chapter 12 and verse 6. Then the woman, going to have the same elements. The woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. So notice the element. A woman, wilderness, place, feed her 1,260 days. Now, this is expanded later on in the chapter. Notice Revelation chapter 12 and verse 14. Revelation 12 and verse 14. But the woman, so you have the same element as verse 6, the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the what? Wilderness. To her what? Place. Where she is what? Fed or nourished. Are they the same elements of verse 6? Yes. But now the time period is expressed differently. For a time, times, and half a time from the presence of the serpent. Does that link with Daniel 7? Yes. So what is Revelation chapter 12 doing? Revelation chapter 12 is expanding the prophecy of Daniel chapter 7. Are you following me or not? Now this is a lot to process. But read it this afternoon when you get back to your room or to your hotel. And it's going to make a lot of sense. So Revelation chapter 12 is expanding Daniel 2, Daniel 7, Genesis chapter 3, and verse 15. Now, our time is just about up. So let's review what we've studied so far. Daniel chapter 2 has the basic outline. Just very little detail. Daniel chapter 7 gives additional details. Revelation chapter 12 provides additional details. Let me give you one example. Does Daniel chapter 7 tell us anything about Satan wanting to kill the male child during the times and dividing of time? Or before that, during the Roman Empire? Does Daniel chapter 2, Daniel 7 mention anything about during the period of Rome there was going to be a desire of Satan to destroy and to kill the male child? No. But in Revelation 12, when the child is born, is it the same kingdom as the legs of iron, the same kingdom as the dragon beast of Daniel chapter 7? It's the same period. It's giving us additional details about the warfare that is not found in Daniel 2 or in Daniel 7. Now, in our next class, which will be this afternoon, Lord willing, we are going to take a look at Revelation 13. It's an amazing expansion of Daniel 2, Daniel 7, and Revelation chapter 12. And it's, Revelation chapter 12, verse 17 is a verse that we're all acquainted with, where it says the dragon was enraged with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. We're going to find the greatest expansion of that one verse in Revelation chapter 13. It's an amazing picture. And then we're not going to deal with Revelation chapter 17. One of the problems, people try to interpret Revelation 17 isolated from all of the other prophecies. So they get all goofed up and, with the 7 kings, one was, is not, and will be. You have to link that with what we find in the previous outlines. And then it will make perfect sense.